Okay, so I know I kind of made a teaser video a minute ago about uh, my latest album, which is a playlist that I just dropped here on YouTube. If I have to go off screen to grab something to drink, forgive me for that. It's just my voice tends to crack if I do this for a long period of time. So, what exactly inspired the album, this ordinary kind of life? I've been struggling trying to find a job recently. About 2 weeks ago, I lost my job, been depressed, uh, trying to figure out what's next for me. Uh, what do I do? How do I produce an income? And yes, I've been looking at jobs hard, and it's just fueled this new vision and feel of what I want, where I wanted to go with my music. And one of my things is that while I do have influencers like George Strait, Randy Travis, Brooks and Dunn, artists from the 80s and 90s, even Reba McEntire is part of that group. The Judds, Winona, when she went solo, Shania Twain, all of those folks I just mentioned, even Garth Brooks, they shaped me and what I was doing. So, as far as what inspired this album, This Ordinary Kind of Life, it's just my struggles, where I've been at for the past couple of years to now, and where I'm really wanting to go. I don't want to do traditional country music. I don't want to have the polished Nashville sound. I want it to be a little bit more raw, a little bit more honest and truthful for me. Um, so that kind of lends over into the next question is who are my influences? I named a few already. George Strait, Randy Travis, Alabama. Uh, Later on, it was Shania Twain, Toby Keith, Garth Brooks, Brooks and Dunn. But in my early years, it was Waylon Jennings, some Willie Nelson. I'm not a huge Willie Nelson fan. I can't get behind Willie Nelson. There's something with his voice that you know I can only do so much with blue eyes crying in the rain kind of voice. I just can't do that. But is that a decent song? Yes, it is. There's also the song "Looking Back Texas" that he did with Waylon Jennings that I really like a lot. Um, I also mentioned the Judds, Winona. Um, what are some of my favorite songs? Uh, Baby Blue. Baby Blue has been a long time favorite. The Fireman by George Strait. Uh, Grandpa by the Judds. Um, some songs I may forget. When Brooks and Dunn came out, um, I got to think on that one for a minute. Brooks and Dunn had so many back then in the early '90s with Brand New Man, and then their follow up to that. I'm trying to remember. Boot Scoot and Boogie from Garth Brooks, The River, The Thunder Rolls. The usual suspects that make country the way it is and the way it sounds now. So, what part of my life does this current album, this ordinary kind of life, sound like? It really the struggles, the faith that I have, uh, the kind of woman I want in my life, somebody who perseveres with me, who wants to do things with me, uh, So it's just a different collection of about 17 songs that showcase where I'm at right this moment. And it's supposed to be a little bit more raw, not a polished Nashville sound. Uh, that's my cat. That's my cat in the background. I don't understand her look. Um, if this album were a place, where would it be? I would say a small town road and a late night drive. Um, Honestly and truly, I know I'm not probably going to get a lot of viewers on this video at this moment because of the fact that it's getting later. Uh, if this album were a place, where would it be? Out in the country, for sure. Where I live right now is it may be a city. Marble Falls is where I'm at, and it's got that small town vibe. It's not excessively huge. It gets huge at certain times of the year uh, because of different things going on. But currently, right now, I would say that we definitely have a very small town kind of a feel, which is what I like about Marble Falls. Um, so this next question, what kind of country music do you think got lost along the way? Like I said before, I'm not chasing trends. I'm chasing truth. Uh, what I mean by I'm not chasing trends, I don't want to sound like Jelly Roll. I don't want to sound like Luke Combs or Miranda Lambert. Trying to think of others. Luke Bryan. I'm not trying to sound like any of them. I don't even want to be part of the bromance scene that I guess Luke Bryan would be part of that. What did I refuse to change about my sound, even if it would have been more, uh, if it was more commercial? I'm choosing independence because for the main fact that major labels want to make you sound the way they want you to sound. And Shania Twain kind of struggled with that when she first started out in the 90s. And along the way, I don't want to say she sold out, but while she was true to herself, she allowed herself to be more polished. And I loved her for definitely for The Woman in Me, her very first album. She she had that raw rawness about her that Robert John Lang had helped her cultivate and develop, that pushed her to the next couple of albums that she had. So it's not that I want to sound commercial. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being a part of a major label. There's something I like about Nate Smith. He's got a raw voice that makes you feel like you're following him on a journey, and I guess that's what I'm trying to look for. But being independent, I don't necessarily want to be signed to a major label because to me, being part of a major label means I'd have to give up certain control. Uh, yes, I'd probably have publishing rights to my songs, and I just want to hold tight to what I make, to what I produce, to a specific sound that I want to have. And the way I describe it is that I guess I just don't want to sound like today's traditional country music because it's constantly evolving, and I just want to stay true to myself. Um, I am a little bit of a rocker at heart, and to be honest, I've always loved country music growing up. I also tried to sound like Def Leppard at one point in my life, and it's not really who I am anymore. I also like Firehouse. These days, I listen to far more country than I ever have. I'd say if I want to sound like closely related to anybody else, it would be Jelly Roll. He's pretty raw and emotional with his stuff. He's been true to who he is lately. He's just a very sweet and humble man, and I just want that reflected more with with what I do with my music. That leads me to this next question. What's a lyric on this album that feels like a confession? That would be. I need to look at that. It sounds to me like a confession. I need to look. Um, Never Known Quit. I feel like it's a hallmark of my life. I struggle with bipolar depression and anxiety. And as I was first diagnosed with bipolar depression and anxiety from 18, and it does work against me for a traditional job. To date, through DistroKid, I've earned about $128 so far, and I just want an alternative source of income, something that grounds me better, uh, something that makes me feel a little bit more fulfilled, even if I'm not solvent enough to uh, fully take care of myself. I know that's not a really deep answer. I do live on disability at the moment, but what I want to convey with this ordinary kind of life is is not only a playful attitude, not just a raw feel about it, but I, I, wa- I want it to be honest. I want it to be true. So you know, um, for me, that would have to be Never Known Quit. Uh, there's there's a line out of it. Let me pull it up. House feels too quiet, nights feel too long. Just me and my thoughts trying to stay strong. It's so true for me, and you know, I think that's what makes it sound so depressing. Uh, and for me, I just want to show a richness and a depth that I understand where people come from. That show people, hey, he kind of gets it. He's a working man. He's trying to do something uh, deep and real. It's not an easy question to answer uh, for what's a lyric on this album that feels like a confession. But for Never Known Quit, for what I just said uh, about it's in verse one. It's the very beginning. House feels too quiet. Nights feel too long. Just me and my thoughts, trying to stay strong. I don't want to try singing it right now because it's getting late, and I got to be respectful of my neighbors. Uh, but that, for me, that hits so true and so real. What's the most ordinary moment that became a song? That would be Neon Slow Dance. I I wanted something that felt real, that felt loving, slow, um, almost sultry in a way. So, something that I'd want to dance with my wife with. I'm not currently married, but if there was somebody in my life that I would deeply love, Neon Slow Dance would be my go-to song that I think she would absolutely love and want to dance with me on. What would younger you think if he heard this album today? Wow, what a question. What would my younger self think if he heard this album today? If he were to listen to this album, he'd probably feel more inspired to be more honest with himself, to dive a little bit deeper and work a little bit harder on actually writing songs, not just using current technology to help write. He'd want to hone his skills a little bit better. The only reason why it's harder for me now to write to write without help is because I, and it's not that I don't like writing songs, I do, but you know, we all need help sometimes, and I don't exactly have access to other songwriters to bounce off ideas from. So I do have to use technology to a degree, and not everybody's going to see what I've got pulled up. Some of you will see that this Chat GPT icon. So yeah, I do use Chat GPT quite a bit for certain things that I work on, but all the ideas that I have are pretty much mine. Um, what would younger me think if he heard this specific album, this ordinary kind of life? He would definitely be inspired. He would definitely think it was honest and true. Uh, so yeah, that's what I've got to go with. Next question is, what does success mean to me if it isn't Nashville fame? Wow, uh, that's kind of hard. What does success mean to me if it isn't Nashville fame? Uh, I, I I just want to have my own identity, separate. Um, let I want to face facts. There, I don't want to say that there's anything wrong with Nashville fame, so to speak. There are a lot of really good and true artists that have gone to Nashville that I love and respect. Lainey Wilson is one. Um, Carrie Underwood, Miranda Lambert, Reba McEntire. Um, and you know, these folks I'm even mentioning are also still. I wouldn't just say my contemporaries, but they do have somewhat of an influence on me, even if I'm not in direct a competitive lane. But that's what I mean by being part of the Nashville scene. Uh, the whole sound out of Nashville is because that's a more polished sound, and over time, everybody's going to see that Lainey Wilson has a more refined sound. Jelly Roll will end up having a more polished sound. I just want to be a little bit more raw and real than that. Um, so that's why I want to be more like George Strait. Uh, Texas based, honoring my roots, honoring the kind of man that my dad raised me to be before his untimely death a few years back. Um, so yeah, what does success mean to me if it isn't Nashville fame? It's not that I want to do it how Frank Sinatra said, which is I want to do it my way. I want to do it according to what feels more real to me. It's not that I want to be hugely independent, but I just don't want a massive team behind me telling me you got to do this right now, you got to do that right now. You've got this group that wants to talk to you. You've got that group that to talk to you. I want to be a little bit more open and honest, and maybe a little bit more accessible. I know when you're overly accessible to people like Selena was, that bad things can happen. So, yeah, there's got to be a bit of a balance there. With that answer, I'm gonna have to go to this next. I don't want to make this a super long. Uh, wow, 20 questions. Uh, so this next question is, what's something I wish country music still had more of? That's kind of hard, a hard answer to give. What's something I wish country music still had more of? There's so much storytelling and soul, so I can't give those answers as what I wish country music had still more of. I don't want to say humility. There is a ton of humility. Um, I would say more honesty, more grit, more real and raw. What's a song on this album that surprises even me? It's kind of a funny song, and it it just sort of came to me because of the fact that a little less than 2 years ago, I had a somewhat messy divorce. Um, so tonight I was thinking over everything, and I would have to say that the song that surprised me was "You Can Kiss My Ass." I love tongue-in-cheek kind of songs, kind of like Blake Shelton's. Um, what was one of his early hits? I'm trying to think of it. Some Beach. Very tongue in cheek, very playful. So for me, a song on this ordinary kind of life that surprised me in developing was "You Can Kiss My Asp." And, an asp is a type of Middle Eastern snake. It's one of the deadliest. And, I just wanted to play on words rather than just outright cussing on the album. I like clean language overall. Um, I'd have to go with that album. I'd have to go with that song for sure. Um, so, considering that I want this to be somewhat tight on time, uh, if this album could sit beside one classic country record, which would it belong next to? If it had to sit next to a classic country record, which would be purely true and honest to me, it would have to be one of George Strait albums. I, I'm gonna have to look it up because I can see the album cover in my head. Forgive me for having to look it up. It's just I don't remember it off the top of my head. I can, like I said, I can see the album in my head. So I just have to go through and really look. I think it's this one. No, that's not it. That is a good album. Straight from the Heart is a good album. Uh, Oceanfront Property. Oceanfront Property. It had three really good and strong uh, releases, but the two top songs off of the Oceanfront Property are "All My Exes Live in Texas" and "Oceanfront Property." So I would have to say for me, this ordinary kind of this ordinary kind of I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. I've been saying it almost all night while being on here. This ordinary kind of life. Uh, it would it would have to sit next to George Strait's Oceanfront Property. What kind of listener did I make this album for? I want it to be relatable for working class, for those that like to dance, that want some grit and honesty about. So pretty much the everyday kind of person who struggles, who wants to have a little bit of fun when they're not working. When I wanted something kind of upbeat, but still uh, still resonates. What's something you've learned about life that Nashville can't teach? Wow, you know, I love a lot of the older artists like Alabama, George Jones. George Strait is still very traditional in his sound. So what I would think is what's something I've learned about life that Nashville can't necessarily teach. To be honest, to be true. Um, I remember one of my earlier songs being "What My Daddy Did Right." Uh, one of the hardest lessons I had to learn was being honest and true because there's a special kind of dignity being honest and true with yourself, and that's kind of what I was trying to go with on this album specifically, "This Ordinary Kind of Life." So I would have to say what's something you've learned about life that Nashville can't teach you? Honesty and truth. Um, what do I think country music is supposed to do for people? Make them think really hard about what it is they want, what it is they that you guys not only want to hear, but would really reflect on that would make you say, I really love the direction he took with this. I love the rawness, the realness, the the honesty behind a lot of this music. So that's that's gonna have to be my answer for this one. What does ordinary mean to you, and why is it worth singing about? Um, what does ordinary mean? Not, I'd have to say it's not common. Uh, what does ordinary mean to me, and why is it worth singing about? Just or normally ordinary means. I gotta look up the original definition for it. Commonly encountered, usual, common. But I don't want it to sound like it's an everyday experience. It's that I think something that resonates. So ordinary in that sense to me would be something that resonates. I would have to go with that as an answer. simply because of it's something that's deep within you that makes you want to try harder. I would also say that ordinary could also mean being resilient. Is something you go through, something that's on an everyday level. I'd have to absolutely say that. What's my quietest song on this album? Um, the Ordinary Kind of Life. And why is it the loudest emotionally? Going through it, going through it is, you know, I would say that even though that is not the lead song, going through it showcases my vulnerability, where I've been lately, the depression I've been fighting a lot lately, and that I'm working through it. Every day's a challenge, and what what more better way to showcase what is both quiet and the loudest emotionally would have to be this song, Going Through It, because no matter how hard things are in life, uh, you'll come through it a lot better than you think you will. What song would I play for someone who thinks they don't like country music? Oh, good question. Uh, what song would I play for someone who thinks they don't like country music? Um, my budget has trust issues, and why do I pick that song? I absolutely have to live on a budget, and it's uncomfortable for somebody who's on disability. I gotta make every dollar work in my favor. I can't just buy this, that, and the other thing like I normally do. So, what song would I play for someone who thinks they don't like country music? I've got a funny sense of humor. I do like dark comedies, and my budget has trust issues as a combination of funny and funny dark, uh, but done in such a way that you don't necessarily feel like it's a dark song. It, but the underlying theme for my budget has trust issues is is the fact that do you really want to look at something that might look bad on the outside, but over time can actually be a good thing? So that's my answer for what song I would play for someone who thinks they don't like country music. Definitely, my budget has trust issues. What's a track that feels like a conversation you never got to finish? Oh, what's a track that feels like a conversation you never got? I'm gonna have to go with the latest and last track on this album, Never Known Quit. Um, why do I say that? What's a track? I know I'm using this specific song, Never Known Quit, twice now. It's just for me, it's like a conversation piece, and it's kind of a favorite because of the fact that before my dad died, he said I was one of the most resilient people he ever met. I was diagnosed. I've said it once. I'll say it again. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and having anxiety when I was 18, and it's just one of those things that conversation's never going to end. There's a lot of stigma to it. A lot of people still don't understand bipolar disorder. They think it means you're moody. Some days you just feel like you can't get up, like you can't do anything. Uh, there are things that I want to take care of in my home. Uh, things that are hard for me to get to, that that are just personally hard, and you just got to put one foot in front of the other day after day. Next question is, what's a track that feels like I answered that. What does my music protect me from? Sometimes reality. Music for me is escape is escapism from reality. Uh, and some people will probably say, well, that's an interesting way to put it. But there's a lot of truth to that. Why is it that certain music provides an escape from reality for so many artists, not just myself? It's because a lot of us who want our music to speak so loudly and so that hits hard with others, like Jelly Roll, for example, Son of a Sinner. That specific song for Jelly Roll, it was the biggest transition for him musically. He had just basically finished doing time uh, as a criminal. He he's admitting a lot within Son of a Sinner. So it's just a conversation piece. Like for me, going through it is. So you know, what does my music protect me from? Loss of sanity, loss of control. Uh, I just want I just want to be as real as I can, really honest and true. And I could say that same thing for a previous question. What song would I play for someone who thinks they don't like country music? Almost every single track off of This Ordinary Kind of Life has has some nugget of truth within it that that'll make you say, "Well, I've never heard it put that quite that way before. Uh, Maybe I should give country music a chance. Maybe I should really uh, listen a little bit more." So that's for me. It's escapism from my current very real situation. I'm even had to file for unemployment insurance uh, because I lost my job. In case I can't find a job for a month or two, uh, I just can't allow myself to end up on the street. What kind of life is that? If my album could speak one sentence to the listener, what would it say? I've got a song titled "I'm Doing My Best." Okay, it's kind of a question. I'm gonna read some of these lyrics to you. If my album could speak one sentence to the listener, what would it say? I'm gonna give the whole first verse. Alarm went off, hit it twice. Coffee's weak, but so am I. Got a got a list I should have done last week, but hey, I'm still on my feet. Truck's got a light that won't turn off. Bank account's playing into limbo soft. And my phone keeps buzzing like I got time to change my life. Think about the depth of those lyrics. Um, for I'm doing my best, okay. Uh, that's it hits a little close to home. It gives you the indication that things aren't quite right. That uh, but you're working for it. Uh, and I kind of wish this was more. I could get engagement on this. Oh shoot, I'm not even on the right account. Whoops. I may have to completely redo this and make the answers a little bit more complete. Uh, this is I'm gonna have